reasons to do so. But I'm wondering how the IT departments feel about these agreements, because from an IT perspective, I look at it and say, wow, gee, if unauthorized work was done on the computer, frequently I go to a PC to do one thing and realize that they have 2 meg left on their hard drive and they're just going to crash now. Or that perhaps they've downloaded a piece of software, which I know is going to cause some problems if I don't remove it. But do you remove it without telling them or asking them?
No, we have systems where if the faculty member is not there, there are certain situations, though, where all of their data is going to be lost. Would you like me to fix it or let you lose your data? So if I couldn't get prior authorization, I would absolutely go ahead and do the work and leave them a written documentation of what was done.
You could then have a provision in here, sort of a catch-all, which said something like that. The IT department reserves the right to perform any functions necessary to make certain that blah, 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 that the whole thing doesn't crash.
But I'm thinking IT department's rioting more than
my IT director, I just showed him this yesterday very quickly. He liked the idea, and he realized even though we do have a separate IT department and we do provide the help desk support now to everyone within the law school, that something like this could help him and help our department as well, in that as one school doesn't call it a service level agreement because it's not in truth a negotiated agreement. It's generally something prepared by IT, which they distribute to users and say, this is it. And they found that people were turned off by calling it an agreement because it wasn't fully negotiated. There's no quid pro quo. So, they just changed the name. They call it terms of service. And what it means is this is what you can expect from us. I think as we see things like what's going on at NOVA, and we all say we want to get there, we want to do that sort of thing, those of us who are not in very high-tech environments now, where we have a handful of faculty members who are who use their computers on a regular basis. A lot of our faculty never turn on their brand new Pentium 2 computers, and we do have to train them. We got to do those projects and get to that point. But I think when you're dealing with a very small percentage of your clientele, you can give them the on-demand service that you give and that we give. When you get to the point where this is going to be much more open, where you're going to have more faculty doing more things, you're going to have more students doing more, you need something like this to really say to everybody, we can't give you, unless you can hire unlimited people, but we can't provide everybody with the service that you've been getting from us in the past. We need to put some parameters on it. Faculty members have office hours. I've seen faculty members slam a door, their office door, in a student's face because they said, well, these aren't my office hours. I can't help you right now. I've got to prepare for class or I've got to do something else. Can IT do something similar and say, sorry, we can't help you on that today. You've got to wait. That's not a top priority matter for us. So it differs so much by institution, and it really always comes down to resources, I think. Yeah. But since it's a contract, you can plug whatever numbers, whatever dates you want in there, whatever time periods you want in there. But as I said, I was surprised as I looked at a variety of them to see that these priorities and the response period for those priorities seem to be rather standard. There are things you'll get immediate service on, and there are other things you may literally wait months for. To get back to the point made before, well, what happens if the IT department is so stretched that even in months they're not going to get to it? Where does that leave the law school? That's frustrating. We are waiting for our IT department to put in an NG server to connect us to their network, and it's the server sitting there and sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And we have such small windows when they can do this where it's not going to affect the entire law school. What do you do in a situation like that? And I wrote, my favorite was Section 8, which I have to say I did write, because I did not see this in any of them. And that's the part that Laurie, Tuttle, and I discussed, and I got a whole bunch of them here if you don't have them. That's the putting teeth in the SLA. This is one way to do it, which is to say, and you need to be specific here, I think. You don't want to actually pay them money, and who wants to pay the money if you don't have to? This is one way to do it. Is to say, okay, if you can't measure up, if you can't meet our expectations, or if you can't honor the terms of this agreement, we've got to do something about it. And this is what we would like you to do. Now, good luck getting them to agree to that provision, right? But that's where you start. You start and then you negotiate from there. if you wanted to go for something like this, you would have to be specific. It could not be something general that if the law school is unsatisfied with the service provided by the university, you need to quantify it. And that's what I tried to do here. What number you put in there, it's up to you. But the idea of outsourcing might be a stretch, but dedicating IT personnel to the law school, why not? I mean, that's not as much of a stretch. Just say, look, hire some people. You're just sick of dealing with the law school. You're sick of the law school students and faculty. Send us somebody who we know is in our building. Obviously, on your budget. Obviously, part of your staff. Rotate them in and out if you want. But have somebody in the law school who we know that we can count on as being there. We don't have to call the main desk. So that's a unique one. The others that you see here are not so unique. The second option, again, came out of an actual SLA, where you have specific charges assessed for specific tasks. And these are pretty much the numbers that are used. Some of them do it at hourly basis. I threw in the other two options, doing it on a per monthly basis. And then the third, thinking of how we all pay for Lexis and Westlaw, it's an annual fee per FTE. Well, you can maybe pay for help desk support the same way. But I couldn't even begin to think of what number I would put in there. So that's why I put. Anybody have an idea if you were going to pay the university to provide you with help desk support? What would be a reasonable amount to expect to pay for that per FTE? Per faculty member on a monthly basis? Tom, do you have any ideas?
Actually, the problem with that approach doesn't have to do with fixing the rate. It has to do with fixing the charges. Cornell operated on this basis for a number of years where they threw a block charge back to individual units depending on head count or any one of a number of other factors depending on what the dean had for breakfast. And basically what it became was a tool in the hands of administration to punish the evil and reward the good from the standpoint of the central administration, because there was always some way to identify the population that allowed them to fix the charge of basically what they wanted it to be.
So it wasn't consistent throughout
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, the thing that's astonishing about all this stuff, of course, is that it is often manipulated by central administration for their own ends. And that I find to be the most difficult thing about it. They can always put together a coalition of have-nots that will agree to anything, basically to improve their situation.
At our institution, they charge us a tax for every university or every university management center. They get assessed a tax for the number of faceplates they have in the building or buildings, and then we have full student services based on the number of, they pay very, who knows what they do with that money, who knows if that money ever goes to the law.
Yeah.
It could go just over more faceplates on the building.
I'm curious, did you consider by buying time, in other words, X number of hours as an option?
That's another way. We haven't implemented something like this, but assuming, and every law school is in a different situation, but assuming in the future that we have no choice but to integrate with University IT more and have to rely on this, then I think something like this will be necessary for us. Right now we're not at that point. Go ahead.
I was going to say, in addition to having these fees that the law school would pay the help desk, I think you need to have fees that you charge the help desk when they don't respond in the time they're supposed to respond.
Well, no. What you would do in that case is
reimbursement.
You just wouldn't pay, and that's no one wants to pay for something if they don't have to. But the one thing that does put teeth in an SLA is the idea that money is going to be exchanged. And as the user, what would you do if you had a repairman come to your house and you weren't pleased with the service? You wouldn't pay. And that, in fact, is what some of the agreements provide, that the payment is due upon satisfactory completion of the work. So that's how you would always do it.
If you have an in-house IT department, though, then they need to be reimbursed for having to cover what the university didn't do.
Well, we pretty much do everything for the law school. So we're in the same spot that you are, that the university and their IT department has something called Do It. I went on the phone. And you get somebody who knows nothing, and they give you a tag number, and whether you need a mouse or you need a distance learning to Singapore class, it's the same response.
But that's the norm. What you're saying is the norm.
That will never go well.
Tom, do you want to say something?
No.
Okay. But that's what you're saying. When you read these agreements, you see that that is the way on the university level
that they
have to operate.
For us, we look at it and I say, we try so hard. We're very customer service based. That we want to help the faculty because it's good for the law school, which is good for us. I mean, that's our goal. So I could never imagine, there are faculty members who require 3 hours of my time, literally, to search for airline tickets on the web. And then there are faculty members who that same 3 hours produces a distance learning class or a real audio or real video, something that really gives value to the law school. So for us, an in-house IT in the law school, it's very difficult to quantify what we'd have to charge somebody back.
I guess in my situation, there's things that in-house can be as customer service as they want, and it doesn't matter because the problem's on the university end.
Yes.
The wiring.
Money.
The software that you need to train students on isn't loaded on the university server for where the computers that the students use. And so you're in line with everybody else. And so how do you quantify the weight? You've done everything on your end that you can do. And still you have this university ball down. Yeah.
I think where you have to start at the highest level. You have to start with an understanding between the university and the law school. What will you give to us? What can we get from you? What do you insist we take from you? And what do you expect for us to provide for ourselves? And that I think is something that should be in writing as well. We just got, the law school at my university was the first to be networked. We were light years ahead of them. They caught up, they passed us. They just recently, with a grant from New York State, they matched the grant and we put new PCs in for all student organizations in the lab and for faculty. Well, 3 years from now, what's going to happen? Are we going to get another grant? Are they going to pay for it? We got to know this. We have to know these things. And these are things you need to have in writing, I think, at some point, because we all know deans live, or survive, not live, but they last 3 years or so if you're lucky, and you're going to have a constant turnover at the highest levels, even or at the mid-level, and you have to have some institutional memory of what the agreement was. 3 years from now, are we going to have to fund the upgrade of that equipment, or can we expect the university, since they've now provided for the first time, to do it again? And these are things that we are now on our third dean in 3 years. We will have had 4 deans in 4 years because we know this dean is going to be an interim dean for a year, and we already know who the permanent dean is going to be. But these are things that each of these people have to pick up and carry on. So I think the first place you start with this is an understanding at the highest level between the law school and the university IT department. This is where we stand. Then you can take it down to a different level like this. Now, I've spoken to a number of the people that are at institutions where they do have chargebacks. From what I've heard, our university IT doesn't like the idea of chargebacks, so I don't think they would ever agree to do this, even if we did say we want to pay you for this service. And he is very much for it for a number of reasons. The first year they did it, they did not actually charge the unit or the individual department, but they did send them a bill saying this is what it would have cost you. There were phantom charges in effect. And he feels it does a number of things. It really makes the user focus on what this costs. Okay, what does it cost for you to sit down with a faculty member for 3 hours to help them get airline tickets? Would your dean even want you doing that if he knew you were doing that? My dean probably would say that's not what you're
But again, what we heard Tom say, if that leads to the faculty
how you would have to
responding to his email from the dean, then that's the way
how you would have to explain it
Absolutely.
to the dean. But they have no idea what your time is worth, probably. So it helps in quantifying and making the user understand what these things actually cost, and we all know it's expensive. He also made an interesting point that it provides consistency and uniformity in terms that now everybody's sort of paying the same, and therefore we've got to provide the same level of service to everyone throughout the university. It helps standardize things, and everybody in IT seems like standardization. So that's another thing that it does. And so the institutions where they're doing this seem to feel it works well. Will it wind up costing a law school more or less? I assume you would would assume that's going to be less to do it this way than to have our own in-house personnel, but you'll probably lose on that hand and that one-on-one service.
One thing that my university is at least considering is moving away from the whole notion of charging for IT at all, putting it on the level of water and electricity. If the faucet breaks in the law school, if you don't pay for the plumber to come out and fix it.
Oh, well, sure, there could be a charge back there.
Well,
I mean, really, from plant operations, you would have a charge back. They charged me $400 to keep the lab, and they did a lousy job.
Well, we're a state institution, and what they've seen is that it's really rearranging money. And there's at least talk of moving to a really centrally funded network infrastructure that is consistent across campus and is serviced across campus without money shifting between departments of IT and back and forth.
That seems to be what our university IT department wants. Again, they as I said before, they don't seem to like the idea of chargebacks, and they have supported us at least this first time. But those things are all subject to change based on, a few years from now, what kind of money's around. And the law school being seen as this rich, just money-laden institution, the law school is going to be the first unit to be hit by something. Pick this up yourself. Somebody had their hand up?
Yeah. One of the things that our university is moving to, and I'm really pretty worried about it, is a system whereby the IT people at the law school become employees of the university IT department, and then we contract them back. And the good thing that they're trying to sell us on the idea that if you have two IT people and you're paying full freight for them, but at some point you don't need two people, things are going along fine for a while. You don't have to have two, maybe you'll have one or a 20-hour person, and they can be working on other projects in the university. On the other hand, if you've got some really big project going on, we'll supposedly send 8 people to you for a while.
Sounds great. Well, I think that's the same situation that our university IT department had proposed. And in some ways they're not wrong. It's silly. The costs are so astronomical and so ongoing that there's a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of overlap between what the law school's paying for and doing on its own and what the university is doing in terms of the equipment upgrades, the infrastructure. Why should we have had 2 networks on a relatively small, geographically small campus?
The other thing is one of the big things, and I do see their point here, is that it costs so much to keep IT people trained, and on top of things, this would be a really uniform way of administering training for them.
Well, that's the other issue. It is so difficult to get and keep IT people that if you have a law school and a university on the same campus, you are sometimes competing for the same personnel. That's silly. But what they're proposing, which is what our university IT also proposed, was to take our people, merge them into their department, and in effect then just have them stay there. I would not have counted on that happening because we have really good IT people, and the university knows that. And I think our people would have been snatched out of there so fast. Tom?
I think my response to that would be simply to say, okay, fine. Anybody you have in-house at the moment who knows fully abuse, let us walk and come work through tomorrow. I mean, we really are into an area there where I don't think that central IT administration really do understand what goes on.
They don't.
Not just in terms of specific software applications. I mean, that's kind of silly. This is stuff that people can learn, in a couple of weeks to the level they need to be able to do factories. But they really aren't geared toward text processing. And as a matter of fact, I mean, we were interviewing some people at Cornell last week, and it suddenly struck me, here's this candidate coming out of a double E department where he's dealing with scientists who deal in quantitative information. He has about as much chance going up against law faculties if Pitt doesn't know about science. It's just not going to happen.
And I think IT personnel, you just pointed out, there's still negative unemployment in that area. I mean, I'm at my university for very specific reasons. If somebody said to me, we're pushing you to the university, I'd be out of there in a heartbeat. There's a million jobs. I don't need to be at the law school, but I choose to be there.
I'm curious, I've heard that from 3 different people. Is the university pushing the other departments and the other schools on campus in the same direction?
Well, they're already
incorporate the IT
They say replication and duplication of services, which is something that you said, which is really not true. I mean, for instance, email systems. Their email system can't do groups.
We don't listen to what the university wants to run on email.
Well, that's what happens. Then they come to us and say, well, you're duplicating services. But our email system works for us. It's what our faculty want. It's the right one. Theirs is, I think, of a lesser quality. Are we replicating and duplicating? No, I don't think so. I think we need separate networks for a very good reason. They have this huge network. It's a flat network. They decided they weren't going to segment anything. Well, the traffic on that network is ridiculous. So for the money they put in, they did it in a stupid way.
Well, my outgoing interim dean, who has really fought the battle to keep us from merging with IT in this past year, has made the point to me when we were talking about the website and the way the website was designed without any of our needs being taken into consideration, without the idea that we want to put our journals up electronically and do other things that aren't done at the undergraduate level for the most part. He's really tried to convince them and show them what we do is different. But he also finally said to me with the battle on the website, he says, look, we have no choice. We'll go along with it. When it fails, to use his words, then we have much more of a strong position to come back and say, okay, now you got to let us do it ourselves. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you can't fight every battle. You have to give in. Explain to them why this isn't going to work. When it doesn't work, then you're in a strong position to come back and say, okay, now you got to let us go along. But, for example, with the website, what they've done, they're trying to make it, a completely interactive, dynamic website. They're pulling, I mentioned Banner because they're pulling a lot of information from Banner where students are going to be able to get their grades and register. And every faculty member wants a bio on the website. Even the faculty members who are not at all technically proficient know that their bio and their picture should be on that website. They've designed a template where every faculty member is going to have to go into Banner to their personnel file and type in their own bio, which will then be put out on the website. It's password protected, and therefore only the faculty member is going to be able to do it, him or herself. Well, out of 47 faculty members, when I heard this, I said, wait a minute, we got 47 faculty members in the law school, maybe three will have the time, the inclination, the skills to do this. And they looked at me and said, well, we're not going to do it for you. So where does that put us? That puts us in a position, as we've heard before, to train the faculty as a project, train them to do it. So we have no choice but to go along with these things. And, as I said before, we weren't brought in the process earlier. And what do we do now? Does anybody ever hear of anything like that, this faculty bios, or a website that works that way? Because I've never heard of that. This is a first to me.
I haven't heard of that, but it's a very similar kind of thing that happens to us all of the time. We seem to, on all issues, be saying to the university, we're different. And they keep saying, why are you special?
Right, exactly.
But our response in most of those situations, or at least in some of them, would be similar to the website, we say, fine, you do your thing, and we'll do what we have to do to fit in with it, which means we'll assign someone to do it for the faculty.
That's what I wanted to do.
That's the Cadillac.
Yes.
Living in a world of sheds. And I think I'm interested that seems to be a situation.
But with this issue with the bios, that was my first reaction. When they first said every faculty member was going to have to type his or her own into this template, I said, okay, I'll get a student worker to do this. Sit somebody down. Then I hear that they're all passwords. They're all under their individual passwords. Now it gets a little more complicated because can I give a student worker every faculty member's network password? I don't think so. It's also a way, if you really want to do it, to say to faculty, okay, the time has come. You've got to learn some very, very basic skills, and this happens to be one of them. That's come from the dean.
On your main campus, are they also requiring each faculty member to, and I would think that the faculty on the main campus should say, well, and then you end up with nothing on your campus.
Well, that was, I don't know. I think in talking with the people on the web site project, I don't know what percentage of undergraduate faculty members are more into this. I don't think, from what I'm beginning to hear, that the percentages don't differ, law school versus undergrad. I think you have the same number who are into it, and those who want nothing to do with it. And we'll see. I mean, it has to play out. This whole thing has to play out before we know.
Our solution, and I guess I'm the product of that solution, and I'm speaking. Our University of Nebraska, the Dean of the College of Law, renegotiated with the Vice Chancellor's office the technology fees, actually reducing them because per capita the students are paying more than other students. And the result of that is they pay information systems to have a full-time person, which I am that person. Basically, I am assigned to law college. I am IT. I belong to the IT group only in as much as I attend meetings. Otherwise, my schedule is dictated entirely by the College of Law.
Who do you report to?
It's the system we're working out. I report to the director of the libraries, which she, in the past, has handled all of the technology issues. Slowly but surely, those things are being worked into my direction. I also report directly to the dean. I attend dean's meetings with the assistant deans, everything else. Management-wise, the director of libraries and the director for information technology form my evaluation. And they're in the process of trying to redo that because I do not work with downtown very much, so it's awfully hard for her to be able to say, yes, I'm doing my job, no, I'm not. One of the things in the process of doing is they also define very specifically all the cabling, the ATM lines, the outlets are the responsibility of the university. We pay a per month charge, and that system was successful enough that they've taken it to the entire university rather than having a hidden cost or lumping it in. It's now treated as like a utility, like electricity, water, whatever. They have a 2 to 5 day turnaround for activating the deactivated ports, and they have a 6-hour turnaround on critical DIM. It seems to work fairly well as a whole. The biggest problem we've encountered, other than who manages me directly, has turned out to be how do you define what is support, something that is supportable, that is a help desk responsibility, versus something that is a customization. Case in point, last week we had a professor who bought a brand new system, Macromedia, Shockwave, and a bunch of other tools, and on Friday he wanted to have a presentation ready to go on Monday of this week with no experience whatsoever, no knowledge, and my background being engineering, I had never even seen most of the software. It gets into a case of, is it essential use, is it something the university supports, or is this a holistic thing where you're the user, it's just like a microwave VCR, you need to learn how to use this and how to do it.
You know, I don't want to say that the university is always wrong. Obviously, no one side is always in the wrong. And I think that what I've heard from the university IT people is that, well, you know, all you guys do is you want, and you're not willing to give back or go along with this on certain things. I think that tends to be true as well. We want you to pay for everything, we want you to provide us the support we need, and then leave us alone. So there's got to be a balance somewhere. But several people mentioned the idea of law school IT departments merging with the university, and I don't know how many of us like this idea, but that brought us to what we were going to cover last, which Laurie had dropped, which is, should there be ABA standards for technology the way they are for libraries, which give libraries autonomy and independence from the main university library, which require the law school to properly fund the library, properly staff the library with professionals. Do we need those? We're at a point now where we need something like that, separate standards for technology. And when I put this out to the law library directors, I got very differently. Some said, absolutely, we're at that point. We need to always have that fear of accreditation hanging over everyone's head. Others said, well, it's going to be just counting machines. Who needs it? So any feelings on the idea of having standards?
Well, it came up, I was talking to the main director of academic computing. He's trying to convince me to move all of our servers to the main computer center.
Had that one too, sure.
Because they're all backed up and everything like that. And I showed him the technology section from the ABA question, because we just went through a presentation, and I said, it's really implied that the ABA would prefer that this be done here.
I think you can say it is implied, right? No, I think that right now you can imply that the same standards do apply. I know the first question that the inspector asked me last year when they arrived was, do you have enough PCs in this lab to accommodate your students? So technology is important, but they have never put in separate standards, right? It's on the questionnaire. But any thoughts on that, on the need for standards, knowing that the ABA's cloud isn't what it used to be and probably will be in the future?
If we were dealing with any kind of technological stability, there might be an argument for it. But we're not. And so all of the meaninglessness of running around counting PCs is further compounded by the fact that at this point I wouldn't really want to be counting PCs. I want to be counting Carol connections. And next year I'm not going to want to be counting Carol connections. I'm going to want to count the wireless capability. And in all of those cases, I'm talking about the same damn thing, which is the ability of students to connect to computers.
That's the argument librarian directors always make is, why do you care about the volume count? It doesn't matter anymore. And we're still counting the volumes and reporting volumes and fiche and all that to them as well. So if they were more general and simply stated that the law school must be able to have the independence it needs to provide its faculty and students with technology it needs to carry out its mission to provide, whatever, that might help us. It would be better than, I think, nothing right now, because you can't always point to those standards when you have to. I know we in the library tend to use them to our advantage. Anything else before we break? Well, thank you all. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Again, I'm sorry we all didn't get to meet Laurie Tuttle. Well, I'm glad we get to meet.